Welcome to Faith Works Live. It is my joy to be with you. You know, around here, if you're new, welcome. But here's the drill: we talk about what it looks like to live for Jesus and like Jesus in this crazy old, mixed up, chaotic Romans 1 type of world. We believe that we were created for just such a time as this, to shine the light of truth and the light of Christ even in the midst of a darkened age. What does that look like? Glad you asked. That's why we're here. So my name's Rebecca, and I'm glad you're with us today. I am pleased and proud and happy to get a chance to reconnect with a name that I know, and in fact, a name that may be familiar to you. He's actually making quite the rounds all over the place because his ministry is always good but incredibly relevant at this time. Judd Saul is with Equipping the Persecuted, and they are an international organization that works to strengthen Christians facing persecution for the name of Jesus around the world. Judd and I go way back, and it's good to reconnect with you, brother. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for having me back on.
Of course. Well, you're becoming quite the household name. So I appreciate that you took the time to talk with us. Thank you very much. And I know it's good to have joy in the midst of, even in the midst of struggle. But what we're about to talk about is very hard to understand, hard to comprehend. But for Christians around the world, and in particular in Nigeria, it's just daily life. That if you follow Jesus, if you admit publicly to being a Christian, then you're going to face serious consequences, aren't you?
That is very correct. And especially with what's happening in Nigeria, um, more and more Christian communities, they have targets on their backs by radical Islamists that have the goal of turning their land and states and even this country into a caliphate, and to declare Sharia law over the entire country. And we have little Christian villages right in the line of this awful, awful genocide.
Well, and I think that's important to understand. We will speak boldly. This isn't to offend or target any particular religion, but it's just the reality that what's happening in Nigeria and what we've seen around the world is the very obvious targeting by Muslims, by radical Muslims who hate to see Christians standing up for Christ. And those two things are really incompatible. Those two worldviews and belief systems, you and I, Judd, both know. And maybe, if we're being honest, the evidence is very clear that radical Muslims are doing their best to stamp out Christianity in those areas where they hold sway. Particularly, this is not a new thing. It's not even new in Nigeria. I know I've been hearing stories and covering stories of violence from groups like Boko Haram, in particular against Christian women and girls, children, who are being just treated in the most vile, awful ways, and the worst of violence visited upon them. This is not new, but it's reached shocking lengths.
Yeah, it has been ongoing, but what we've seen recently is a major rise in attacks against Christians. This has been going on a long time, where the radical Islamists have come from the north in Nigeria, and they've conquered territory by first cultural jihad, move in, gain a huge population. They're not indigenous to Nigeria. They're not indigenous to this country, but they move in, they populate, gain a population, then they get political control, and the killing starts. And it's just been a death by a little thousand attacks here and there. And then all of a sudden, when you look at it over the span of 20 years, you see that there's well over 600 communities, entire community, county governments all throughout Nigeria that have been completely eradicated and fully populated by these radical Islamists. And they continue pushing Christians further and further south as they take over. And that's what we're seeing right now, is a full-on, real-life jihad taking place right before our eyes.
Well, let's talk some about the experience of Christians in Nigeria. I have to imagine it's very different than we see in America, where we think, we have a very different view. We'll just say a very different view of persecution. And you, coming from my own home state of Iowa, you understand just the culture shock and the culture shift that would be. So I wonder if you could talk about some of what Christians, so let's just say someone comes to Christ, comes to faith, declares, yes, I'm a disciple of Christ, probably baptized into the church there. And what are they acknowledging, and what are they to expect today?
if you are, all right, I'll just say if you become a Christian in an already Muslim controlled territory, you're following Christ. You're setting yourself up for failure as far as worldly things go, because you're automatically a second class citizen. You don't get privileged. You don't get the good positions. You don't get the good jobs. No matter what profession it is, you're a second class citizen. And then in the hardcore Sharia states, Christians are having to pay jizya, which is a fine just to exist on the property. And if they don't pay that fine, the wives and the daughters will get raped. They they will kill one of the family members. This is what Christians are living like in northern Nigeria. Now, what's happening now is in the Middle Belt communities, which is majority Christian, that's where this clash is happening. And right now, pastors and churches in these communities have targets on their backs. So when they go to church on Sunday, they know that they are at risk of being attacked even on a Sunday morning.
And I would imagine that's especially vulnerable because they know where you're going to be, right? They know that Christians are faithful. They know that they can find them in worship on Sunday.
Yes, and it happens frequently. It happens frequently. At least on a monthly basis, we hear a church getting attacked while Christians are in service. It was about a week ago. A pastor, they came into a church, they killed the pastor, they kidnapped his wife and about 30 members of a congregation. That just happened a week ago here in Nigeria, and was unprovoked. Wasn't expecting it, but this happened, in the middle belt of Nigeria. And there's Christians being killed every day. On average, based on what we've seen, is 35 Christians are killed per day in Nigeria. And let alone, let's say a Muslim comes to happen to know Christ, them and their entire families are at risk. They have a death threat on them as soon as someone converts to Christ. So this myth that's being spread that Nigeria is a secular state and they respect both religions, that's not true. They favor Sharia.
Tell me what is a good way to understand the government situation in Nigeria, because we are hearing some conflicting reports. How has the government been allowing this violence to go on if in fact it is this sort of free and secular state? And what is their response when it's undeniable at this point? I think a lot of it was very much swept under the rug. You would hear a few stories bubble up to the top. Every once in a while you would see a push to quell the violence, but it has been continuing largely unabated. And like you said, it's now gotten even worse to the point where the global community is now aware. We've got the president of the United States now, posting about it and bringing renewed attention to this issue, that there has to be an American response. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But what is the Nigerian government's response, and how does that compare to the level of threat? Do they understand what's really going on? Are they willing to address it?
So no, the Nigerian government mostly is complicit in the killing of Christians here in Nigeria at this point. For the last 3 presidential terms, you've had Muslim presidents. This latest term, it's a Muslim president, Muslim vice president, and over time they have actually taken the Fulani ethnic militia. This is the radical Islamist tribes, and they peppered them throughout the infrastructure through the Nigerian military.
And so they're on the same team, basically.
They're on the same team, and they're looking the other way. So I created a website called truthnigeria.com, okay, where I gave citizen journalists in Nigeria a way to document and tell the stories that no one else would tell. Okay, so when you see, for instance, a major attack that occurs and it finally hits mainstream media, what happens is it goes through the filter of Al Jazeera, and then after Al Jazeera, then it goes to CNN, then it goes to the AP.
Yeah.
And then
all trustworthy sources, right?
All trustworthy sources, yeah, but it gets filtered. And so, but when you look at what actually happens when it hits the mainstream media, you're looking at, it was the actual number killed, like in Yellowwater, Benue, this Father's Day massacre that took place, 280 Christians were killed. The mainstream media said 100 Christians were killed. No, it didn't say Christians. It said farmers. 100 farmers were killed by unknown gunmen or bandits. So when it goes through Al Jazeera, they never name who the killers are. It's always this: they're herders killing farmers, or it was unknown gunmen or bandits. But it's not actually saying who's doing the killing. Well, who's actually doing the killing? It was the Fulani ethnic militia. These are radical Islamists from the Fulani tribe that are doing all the killing in the middle belt. But no one says it. And so this is the narrative problem we're having. That's why it's so confusing and not too many people understand what's going on, is because by the time it hits the mainstream press, it's just nebulous. And you have no idea what's actually happening. Well, Truth Nigeria, we've put people on the ground that are actually going to these sites. They're talking to survivors. They're counting the dead bodies. And we're getting the truth out about what's happening. So my sources are much more reliable because they're going to the actual places where the attacks occur, rather than some Al Jazeera journalist sitting in Abuja regurgitating government talking points.
Yeah, well, and it's so important to get the truth out. I mean, that's what a difficult job that would be. Like it would be like a war correspondent going into the trenches and then having to number the dead bodies. And I saw a video, and I'm afraid I don't know exactly where in Nigeria that this was taken, but it was of a preacher. He was preaching inside the grave. They had dug a mass grave, and they had their congregation gathered around the edge. So we're talking about, I don't know, maybe 6-7 feet deep down in the ground, and they are crying and they are lamenting all together. And he's preaching over the bodies of those who have just been killed, and saying, wake up, basically wake up, this is really happening, how can you ignore this? And at the same time, they're also, I mean, the words fail to describe the courage that it takes to proclaim the name of Christ, even over the dead bodies of your fellow Christians in a mass grave, knowing that very likely you could be next, and refusing to be silent and saying things like, well, basically, we can't stop. We can't stop speaking the truth of the name of Christ, and that this is the only way for hope. This is the only way that we can move forward. I mean, how many of us would have the courage to do that same thing? So I just, loud and clear, I commend our brothers and sisters in Christ. It's so, your courage is overwhelming. And at the same time, it must demand action. It's a call to action for the global church. So I'd love to talk a little bit about how we can practically support that effort. Obviously, you, Judd, are doing yeoman's work, are doing more than your fair share of that. And we also have perhaps some big global moves. If the president of the United States is starting to demand action on this, I think everybody is now starting to sit up and take notice and saying, we can't ignore this anymore.
Yes, a lot of progress has been made. I want to backtrack real quick, if you will. That pastor you're talking about, his name's Pastor Ezekiel. Ezekiel DeComo. He's a friend of mine.
Okay.
He is a man that I would like everybody to stop and take a moment and pray for. This guy,
Pastor Ezekiel.
Pastor Ezekiel DeComo from Plateau. Plateau State. He has targets on his back. This guy has to move around constantly. He has to go into hiding multiple times. But this pastor is one of the few pastors I know that is going right to the danger zones here in Nigeria, proclaiming Christ, praying over people, leading others to Christ in the process, but also speaking up about what's really happening here in Nigeria. And the overseers in his denomination have pretty much thrown him aside. They don't like the trouble that he's causing. Pastor Ezekiel is also speaking up very boldly against the corrupt Christian leaders that are here in Nigeria. Pastor Ezekiel is the real deal, and I love that guy. But I just want to say that that is the man who is praying in standing in the gravesite with the bodies, praying over them. Yeah. And Pastor Ezekiel is the go-to pastor for many of these communities, and he goes in and shares the love of Christ and the light of Christ in these areas. I just wanted to share that.
Amen. Absolutely.
But with what's happening now with Trump coming out and doing this, and it was really crazy because we saw Bill Maher talk about this on his show, and that's what created this crazy firestorm. But yeah, I have been working on this for years. I've been going to DC once every 3 months, meeting with people in the government, meeting with congressmen and senators about Nigeria. And when I first saw this coming on, I I just fell out of my chair when I saw Trump do this. It was very surprising. We knew that progress was happening, but I was just very surprised to see it actually come to fruition. And I welcome it all. I welcome it all, because somebody needs to come in and intervene on behalf of persecuted Christians. We're doing our best with equipping the persecuted, but we need high level intervention. It's going to take government intervention to start protecting the Christians here in Nigeria. And if there isn't intervention, I'm afraid that it could lead to a civil war eventually.
Yeah. This is really serious stuff, Judd. I just wanted to mention, on a lighter note, I never thought I'd say Bill Maher, Donald Trump, and Nicki Minaj in the same sentence. But I never had that on the proverbial bingo card.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought or saw that coming?
What man intends for evil, God will use for good every single time. So he takes an avowed and scoffing atheist, and he takes Donald Trump, who has such a storied history, like he almost defies description. And then we have famed what would you even call it, a feminist power rap icon, Nicki Minaj, retweeting Donald Trump about Christians in Nigeria. I had no idea that all these things could work together, but God does work all things for good. And this is just a beautiful example of that, Judd.
Yeah, this is all God. I mean,
absolutely.
At the end of the day, after everything I've been through working with and in Nigeria, all the elements that are coming together, I believe this is a movement of God that is doing this, because finally, even at the very least, the world is now seeing and paying attention to what has been happening to Christians in Nigeria. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for where things are going. And I'm praying that they make the right decisions in the process here.
Yeah. Well, and there are real ramifications for this, obviously. I mean, I am curious. It probably sounds like it's its own show. So I don't know how far down the rabbit hole we can go about what the Christian leaders are actually doing. If there's, if there is corruption there, if there's, a way that we can to try to straighten that out so that we're speaking with one voice and we're not, support is actually going to the places it's going to help, and people that are unafraid to speak out and tell biblical truth. Is that near the target? I don't really know. You would know better than I what's actually happening.
There's a few things going on, and and this is where we have to get our politics right here in this. Okay, we do have a problem where our higher ups in the U.S. government are focusing on Boko Haram and ISWAP as they're the people that are committing all that, responsible for the genocide in Nigeria, and that's false. Yes, they need to be dealt with. They have committed genocide. They are participating in this. But the main cause of the genocide in Nigeria is the Fulani ethnic militia. It's not Boko Haram and ISWAP. They have their terror thing there, and they need to be dealt with. Don't get me wrong. They need to be completely wiped off the map. But if our focus is just up there, you're going to see thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Christians still get killed because they're putting their focus on the wrong people. Yeah. If it's about saving Christians, they need to deal with the Fulani ethnic militia. And that is what we are fighting with right now within the government, of getting them to recognize who the enemy really is. Boko Haram is easy to go after because they have the big name, but the real genocide is being committed by the Fulani ethnic militia right now.
And they're the ones that have connections to Nigeria's government. Is that what I'm hearing?
They have the connections to Nigeria's government. There are politicians that are complicit and supporting this stuff behind closed doors. And the funny thing is like when we talk to people in the U.S. government or whatever else, they act as if they're shocked, like, oh, how could that be? How could that be? Well, if you come to Nigeria, it's common knowledge. Like, if you speak to Nigerians, this is common knowledge. The Nigerians that are actually on the ground. Okay, there's big business, and there's a lot of corrupt things going on with politicians in the Nigerian government where they're profiting off of the genocide. They're profiting off of the kidnappings. They're profiting off of where Christian land is all of a sudden disappearing. There's illegal mining operations happening on this Christian land.
Okay, because that was going to be my question: is who profits and how is is there business in the ransom, and then are they stealing the land basically from the Christians to, when they wipe them out, they take their goods?
They take their goods, they take their land, they take everything they own, they squat on everything. But interestingly enough, what we're starting to see is Chinese mines popping up
Huh.
over this Christian territory. This is a new discovery we've discovered in the last few weeks. Is that there are Chinese mines popping up on that was once Christian land.
Things that make you go, like what?
Things make you go, So why is China now is coming out against the U.S. government, calling it a country of particular concern? The Chinese are benefiting off of this as well.
Oh. I mean, it's just wickedness compounded, and there's no good reason to do any of this. But the fact that we can trace it to what are pretty clearly financial interests as well, just kind of shine the light on the fact that everyone needs to speak up about this. This isn't a question of one religion over another for those who are squishy or neutral or trying to maintain some sort of neutrality. This is people clearly being targeted for their religion, for their faith, but also for the benefit of a corrupt system or corrupt leaders. And that should, I think, get everybody, even the Bill Maher's of the world, like off the fence and realize this is evil and we have to stand up against it. And I think that our government clearly is making strides in that direction. I know Donald Trump has now very publicly declared support for Nigeria and now has even said, kind of dramatic in classic Trump fashion, rather dramatically, that we are going to take the side of the Nigerian Christians, and that something basically this needs to stop. Otherwise, we'll go in, and now, of course, that's where all the coverage is, which is the concerns about wars and rumors of wars. And so, when you hear something like that, Judd, how do you parse all of this? And if you were advising, and maybe you have been advising the president and key leaders, what are you telling them? How can we, as Americans, as our nation, be truly supportive of Christians without escalating any violence?
Well, the key thing is like I said, I don't think we need to come in and go to and have the U.S. government come in and do war and all that other stuff. But serious sanctions, I think they can do things economically to get Nigeria to do the right thing. There's a lot of solutions, but at the very least, we have to identify what the problem is. And if you can identify the problem, then you can figure out the solution.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, no one has figured out the problem or identifying the problem. And that's what we're trying to fix. And that's what we're trying to say. Look, if this is really about Christians and saving Christians, let's deal with the problem and acknowledge that this problem exists.
Yeah, that's an important first step. And then for the Christians that are there, obviously, we must pray for our brothers and sisters who are persecuted. You and I did right before we began our conversation. But are there other practical ways ways that we can inform our prayers at the very least, and then other organizations or ways that we can support even practically with money, with time, any of those things that you would recommend?
So I'm going to plug my organization.
Go for it. I set you up, man. Go ahead.
Plug my organization, equippingthepersecuted.org. Why us? Why equippingthepersecuted.org? Well, because we are a real boots on the ground mission that is dedicated to helping persecuted Christians here in Nigeria. We are there within 48 hours of an attack, giving food and aid to those that need it. These are people that have lost everything. They've lost relatives. They're suffering from wounds, malnutrition, you name it. We're there to try to help them as best we can after these attacks. And currently in Nigeria, there's 3.5 million Christians that have been displaced from their homes, living in camps. And we're doing with what little resources we have, we're doing everything we can to help those people out as well. But what also separates us from other organizations is we are actually trying to stop the persecution. We work with village security teams. We're trying to save lives. We're not just coming in to put a Band-Aid on a situation. We are actively doing everything within our power to stop the persecution, because I don't want to exist as an organization. I'd like to see the persecution stopped and us be done. I'd like to go back to playing golf again and enjoying, life.
Yeah.
But this is my mission. This is what God has called me to do. And this is who we are. We're not talk. We actually walk the walk, and we're the real deal. So equippingthepersecuted.org. If you can partner with us monthly, whatever you can do, support equippingthepersecuted.org, and then keep us in your prayers, keep the persecuted Christians in your prayers, but also politically call your congressmen, call your representatives, call your senators, and continue to beat the drum and tell them to intervene on behalf of persecuted Christians.
Mhm.
Just because Trump says something and does this does not mean the political battle is over. We have to be on this
Mhm.
constantly beating the drum and
Yeah.
not just have it be a flash in the pan issue and then disappear later.
Right, exactly. So, and what do you think? And this might be a strike while the iron is hot moment. Like you said, all of these strange things are converging, and names we never thought would be on the same side are right here. So this seems like a wonderful moment to move this
Yes.
on this issue and make a real difference. What would that effective intervention? So let's pretend I'm on the phone with my congressman. If they still take my calls at this point, because they probably see me
Yeah.
coming. But what would that effective intervention look like in your view?
Well, tell them to get on to Representative Riley's legislation
Okay.
for Nigeria, get on to Representative Riley's legislation and Ted Cruz's legislation in the Senate. Congress is going to have to act, and you got to go through Rep Riley's through the House, and then Ted Cruz's legislation in the Senate.
Okay.
But call your senators and say, get on board with this. Get on board with this. Sign on to the co-sponsor the bills. Get on their side, and let's make this happen.
Okay, absolutely. And then as far as the needs that you're meeting, obviously, if you have a million, you said 3.5 million people that are displaced that are living in camps, that is, I mean, how difficult that would be. We have family, we have young kids. So I'm just thinking my heart goes out to everyone in that situation. Is there a realistic way to, I mean, maybe some of them could come to America, but obviously the problem is so great in the country that that's only a stopgap. Are there refugees that are able to come to America or to other countries? Is that a feasible thing?
Nigerian refugees haven't been able to go anywhere. They haven't
Okay.
been able to come to the U.S. They haven't been going into other countries. In fact, Arab countries and Middle Eastern countries are capitalizing on this and actually doing terrible things to these survivors because they have no other choices. They see money or some opportunity, and these people end up becoming slaves up north.
Ah,
They are being exploited by these other countries, and so they have no place to go. So they're essentially, here's your village. It's attacked, blown up. You can't go back, or you get killed, and then you're given a random plot of land with no infrastructure that says, "Here, survive.
wow.
Here you go." And then sometimes the Fulani come in, and then they go attack these camps. It is the most
Yeah.
horrendous
It's just a
situation.
cycle.
And these people are dying of disease. They're dying of starvation. They get little to no help. They get little to no help. They get barely any help from the Nigerian government. They get very little help from the international community.
Mhm.
And this is the reality of what's going on. And I just wish the press, like mainstream media, if you want to know what's
Mhm.
going on, come to Nigeria, go to these camps yourselves.
Right.
Go film it. Go see what's going on. This is what I see with my own eyes when I come to Nigeria. Like, it's reality.
Yeah.
So for people that say this doesn't exist, it's a lie from the pit of hell.
Mhm. Yeah. And again, if you want to see, go and see. Go and see and listen to the stories that are out there. Go talk to Pastor Ezekiel. Go talk to someone like Judd Saul, like we are today. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time as well. This is a huge mission. It's a huge need. And I just over and over again, when we see the devil try to stamp out, the enemy is roaring, but it's the sound of a defeated foe. We know that. We know that this suffering can't compare to the glory that awaits, but it doesn't feel light and momentary at the time for women, for children, for families that are suffering in these camps that have been attacked for their belief in Christ. They are suffering as Christ has suffered for his name. And the least we can do is stand with them as brothers and sisters from across the world. We can give our time, talent, and treasure to help support them. But I think above all, we do have to be vocal. The time to be silent is over. It's not even it's not even a cloudy issue. It's so very clear that what's happening here is wrong. This should not be controversial. I don't care who you are. In fact, I did a little bit of research online today, and you now have at least a few opinion pieces saying, well, this violence is bad for everyone from Muslim sources that are at least in some way trying to stand in solidarity to say, well, this is bad for everyone. This is bad for security. It's bad for reputation. It's bad for our economy. We've got to stop doing this. So even they realize, at least in part, that this is unsustainable. So, I mean, every voice that joins this chorus is important.
That's right. And you know what? I would like to see Nigeria be a prosperous nation. I'd like to see them live in peace. I'd like to see all communities thrive here.
Hmm.
Um, but that is not going to happen unless this element is dealt with.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to drag Nigeria further and further and further down. And if something isn't done soon, like I said, this could lead to a much bigger conflict where we're, instead of thousands of dying, which is just absolutely terrible, it'll be in the millions.
Mm.
And that's where we're at right now. So
Yeah.
just continue to pray, please. Pray
Yeah.
for us, pray for Nigeria, pray for the persecuted Christians.
And now is the time to speak up and use our voice and our freedom here in the United States to support our brothers and sisters there. Like you said, if you talk to your congressman, again, we can be polite. We can be, was it? Our friend says, be bright, be brief, and be gone when it comes to congressional communication. Yes. So that's very good as far as a tagline. But talk to them about Representative Riley's legislation in the House and Senator Ted Cruz's legislation in the Senate. Let's do that. That doesn't take much to make a phone call or make an email, and every voice matters. So lift your prayers to the King of Heaven and call your congressman while you're at it. Thank you, Judd Saul. We'll be praying for you and for your ministry. Again, I can put links down below, but one more time, your website for Equipping the Persecuted.
Equippingthepersecuted.org, all one word. Make sure it's equippingthepersecuted.org. And we'd love for you to partner with us and be part of our team.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for your family. I mean, that is, I'm not sure if you saw your life going this way, but it's amazing how God puts us to work in these fields. He writes the best stories. I can't predict it. Like I said, I just can't wait to see what the next adventure is going to be. Above all, he will use everything, even the depths of evil that the enemy throws at us to try and stomp out and destroy the hope that we have. He can't win. He can't win. And light has shone in the darkness. The darkness cannot overcome it. That light is Christ. He is the hope of all generations and all nations. And no matter what, no matter how dark it is, the light shines even brighter. So thank you for shining light in a dark time, Judd. And you're welcome back anytime.
Well, love to be on. It's good to see you again.
Yes. Good to reconnect. God bless you too. I will put, like I said, I'll put the easy button because we try to make it easy for Judd's website and the ministry there. Highly recommend that you check out the work that they're doing. Keep in touch, keep praying, and whatever you can send to help for this effort, it will not go in vain. It is well worth it. And just imagining being in their position, brothers and sisters around the world, they are our fellow Christians and they need our support. So again, lift up their names to the God of heaven and lift up their cause to your congressmen, to your congresswomen, representatives, senators, all, and let your voice be heard. That we as Americans, as Christians, stand with the Christians in Nigeria. Thank you for listening, and that's a great action step. I think our threefold mission fits very well into this episode, which is to love God, to serve people, and to live free. Thank you for listening to Faith Works Live.
Now is the time to stand for life. For 50 years, Iowans for Life has been the longest standing nonprofit pro-life organization in Iowa, and they stand strong today as Pulse Life advocates. They believe in defending the defenseless, and that's what we need now, a new generation to value the sanctity of all human life from fertilization till natural death. They advocate at the Capitol, in classrooms, at events across the state of Iowa on abortion, on family planning, on physician-assisted suicide, euthanasia, basically every issue where the culture is so contrary to what God calls us to. They're standing in the gap as defenders of the defenseless, and they're a voice for the voiceless because they believe in the value of life. And if you do too, sign up for their newsletter and get involved today at pulseforlife.org. That's pulseforlife.org. At FaithWorks Live, we're proud to partner with Intervisions Healthcare. In unplanned pregnancy and STD situations, they offer help and hope. It's all confidential and it's all free. If women are in a crisis pregnancy situation, they know that they can get real help at Intervisions. Free pregnancy testing, free STD testing, free ultrasounds as well to see that inner vision. Because women deserve the truth about their bodies, about their baby, about all of their options. And if a woman has gone down the road of seeking abortion through medication and she regrets that decision, Intervisions also offers abortion pill reversal procedure, which is a life-saving, miraculous option to have right here in our own community. Intervisions Healthcare, well worth supporting, providing those free services to women in crisis pregnancy. You can call them 24 hours a day at 515-440-2273. That's 515-440-2273.